Chapter 8 Hard at Work. When Joanne awoke the next morning, she was confused. For a second or two she could not decide where she was, but then everything came flooding back. Here she was in a strange bed, in a daunting hotel, in an unfamiliar city, and about to embark on what exactly? Her first instinct was to snuggle down again under her bedclothes to escape the noise of the early morning activities. People talking, a ringing telephone, running water, and the distant clatter of crockery. She could also escape the interfering shaft of sunlight which came through a chink in the curtains and shone across her bed. What she couldn't escape was Katie, who leapt out of bed and into the shower. "Get up, Joanne! We should be downstairs by now. We're here to work, remember? We're not on a holiday." Joanne sat up reluctantly and rubbed her eyes. "I'll have you know that when I'm on holiday, I'm up with the larks. It's the thought of work and all that goes with it that makes me want to stay in bed." "Joanne!" All right, I'm getting up." "Did you sleep well?" asked Katie, returning to the bedside. "No, did you?" "Like a top." "You've nerves of steel." "I wouldn't say that." "I would." "How are you doing your hair?" "I'll just blow dry it. I suppose we'll have to wear caps if we're handling food." "In that case, I'll tie my hair back." "You'll look very efficient." "Yes, but I won't be." Joanne picked up her clothes. "Make way. A shower will liven me up, I hope." "Hurry up. We don't want to sack on our first day." Joanne was in and out of the shower in record time. "There," she announced, "the world's fastest showerer. Feel better?" "Much. When do you think will Barry arrive?" "Sometime this morning, I imagine." "Katie, do you think we should disguise ourselves?" "Whatever for?" "Well, he'll recognize us, won't he? The fake one, I mean." "So what? The fake Barry won't suspect anything. He'll accept us as loyal fans who happen to have a holiday job here. It'll make our investigations that much easier. We'll hang around and make nuisances of ourselves, and he'll just think we're silly girls who worship him. And if the real Barry turns up, he won't even know us." Joan breathed a sigh of relief. "That makes me feel better." "Yes, you look much brighter. Stop worrying and get downstairs, or else." "Any volunteers to take Bobby for a walk?" The girls looked up in surprise. Sam had popped his head around the kitchen door as they were tugging into an enormous breakfast prepared by Mr. Marcel. "Who's Bobby?" asked Katie. "Not my Bobby yet, my dears?" "No, who is he?" "A great pal of ours. He's Mr. Healy's dog," said Mary, who was sitting with them. "He has to be taken in walks, and Mr. Healy usually has too many other things on his mind." "Funny," remarked Katie. "He didn't seem like a dog person." "He can be as snubby as a dog when he gets into one of his hot tempers." "Hotter than one of my special chili dishes," joked Mr. Marcel, who was standing over his stove. Joanne laughed. "I'll be happy to take Bobby out. It's a lovely morning. I better not go too far in case I get lost." "Bobby will bring you back," grinned Mary. "Just go round the shopping square with him. There's some lovely shops to look in." "I'll fetch him," said Sam. "Then we must get crackin', Mary. That Singer fellow will be here soon. Mr. Mundy and Mr. Perkins will be back today, too." Mary groaned. "Don't remind me. It's been lovely without them two. Mr. Mundy's a dragon. She's the secretary, does all the clerical work and that. And Mrs. Perkins, the housekeeper, she's been here since the year dot, and she's well past retiring age." "And what's she like?" inquired Joanne. "Keen as a mustard. She's got an heart of gold, really. But you'll have to watch your step," warned Mary. "Oh, that sounds bad," wailed Katie. "Don't get me wrong, they're quite fair. I mean, if you was really ill, you wouldn't have to work, but, boy, you'd have to stay in your room. There's no skimming off with the two of them around." "Well, after this terrific breakfast, I can vouch for one thing, Mary," said Katie. "The standard of food at the King's Castle deserves 10 stars. Sam came in with Bobby, the scruffiest black mongrel, but the most appealing dog Joanne had ever seen. She lost her heart to him immediately, and the feeling was obviously mutual. As they strolled through the streets, Bobby kept glancing up at her and wagging his straggly tail. Joanne bought him some doggy talks and fed them to him, and they sat on a bench together for a few minutes. The grateful look on his face was pure delight. You're an absolute darling, she declared, patting him fondly. I can see that we are going to be great chums. We'd better go back to the hotel now, though. We can't leave your Auntie Katie to do all the work. As Joan and her new friend turned the corner of the road where the hotel stood, she stopped in her tracks. A large limousine had pulled up at the entrance of the king's castle, followed by a large van. Sitting in the back seat of the car was a man with a shock of blonde hair. "Barry Nichols!" she gasped to Bobby, who looked up puzzled. "It's all right, boy," she said, stroking him and bending down to keep her face out of sight. She could not somehow walk up the hotel steps in full view of the Rock Star. She noticed the trade entrance a short distance to the left, so she decided to enter that way. She need not have worried, no one would have spotted her. There was much coming and going and unloading of big trunks and crates. Mr. Bamford was puffing and panting in his long coat as he helped Sam carry them up the steps. Katie had gone back upstairs to change into her waitress uniform. She heard the commotion downstairs and watched the new guest's arrival from her bedroom window. Even from the 4th floor, Katie could see that this Barry Nichols was the same one they had met in the theater back home. With him was the young man Martin and the young woman Susie, plus a number of other people, including an older man who seemed to be taking charge of everything. His manager, thought Katie, but whose manager? The real Barrys or the imposters? Suddenly the idea of unraveling this mess seemed a very daunting prospect, but Katie would never have admitted such a thing to Joanne. "We'll do it," she said out loud. Then she fastened her frilly white apron over her stark black dress and made her way downstairs to serve breakfast. Mary was staring through the glass doors into the sunlit dining room where Barry Nichols' party was assembled round a large circular table. "Isn't he heavenly?" she gasped. "Come off it, Mary. You wouldn't swap him for your Sam, would you?" joked Katie, filling trays with coffee cups and plates of bacon, eggs, and tomatoes. "I'd be tempted," said Mary. "Anyway, you're a cool customer, Katie. Your very first day, and you're gonna serve a world-famous star without turning a hair. You're a big fan as well." "He's only a human being like you and me," replied Katie sensibly, standing off towards the rock star's table. Mary and Joan followed her with trays of toast, croissants, and jugs of steaming coffee. Breakfast was served without any comments, other than the odd cursory thank you from the guests, but did not even bother to look up and see who was serving them. Katie had been listening intently for any clues, but all she heard were snatches of conversation about bookings, schedules, backing groups, and instruments. The hungry diners were more interested in eating than speaking. Later in the morning, the girls had to report to the dreaded Miss Mundy. She reminded Joanne of the stereotyped schoolteacher she had seen in old films and television, though she had never come across such teachers in real life. Miss Mundy's appearance was extremely severe. Her pinned-back hairstyle did nothing to soften her sharp, pinched features, and her voice and manner were frosty. "Did you bring references?" she asked. "No, we weren't asked to do," answered Katie firmly. "Typical," mused Miss Mundy. "It's obvious what she thinks of Mr. Healy's way of doing things," thought Katie. "I expect we could send for some," she volunteered. "Never mind, it's too late now you're here, and these are only temporary positions." "I'm sure you'll be satisfied with our work," said Joanne. "We'll do our best." Mr. Mundy thought for a moment. "We're short of reception staff. Have you any typing experience?" "Yes," replied Katie and Joanne together. "Good. What about the switchboard? Can you operate it?" "Yes, with a little instruction we'll both cope competently with it," said Katie confidently. "Come round the counter and I'll show you the layout of the reception area," barked Miss Mundy. "Excuse me," came a loud, efficient voice. The girls and Miss Mundy turned to see a smiling and very smartly dressed young woman with a suitcase. "Good morning," said Miss Mundy dryly. "Can I help you?" "Yes, I'm booked in here for a week." Miss Mundy scanned the pages of a desk diary. "Miss Janet Macklin?" "That's me," beamed the young woman condescendingly, half turning and admiring herself in a long mirror. Katie and Joanne gave each other knowing looks. Joanne wondered if Katie would introduce herself to the fan club secretary, but she did not do so. "Katie, give Miss Macklin her key, show her where to sign the register, and call for Sam to carry your luggage," commanded Miss Mundy. "Very well," replied Katie politely, though she was angry that Miss Mundy had not said please. "Thanks ever so." Janet Macklin smiled at Katie. Joanne scrutinized her carefully and even watched as she signed the register with a flourish. She could not decide whether or not she liked her. She was one of those people with an easy, confident manner who could cope with any situation. Joan was jealous of people like that. She'd worked so hard at appearing to be at ease, and she always had to think hard of things to say in strange surroundings. Janet Macklin had probably always been happy with herself, thought Joan, and with a good reason. She seemed intelligent, and she was certainly very attractive. Here she was, staying in the hotel by herself and writing for the Barry Nichols fan club newsletter. If only Joan could be so independent. Then something struck her. Miss Macklin must know Barry very well, but which Barry? Would she too be fooled by the usurper? Why didn't you introduce us to Janet Macklin? Joanne asked Katie as they strolled with Bobby through a nearby park. I thought it wiser to keep quiet for the moment. But you spoke to her on the phone, didn't you? That's how you found out where Barry was staying. She'd never seen me, though. Won't she find out it was you who won the competition and that we met Barry at the concert? 'Cause you told her about that when you rang her? Yes, you've got a point there. We'll just have to cross that bridge when we come to it. Do you think she'll see it's not the real Barry as soon as she meets him? Continued Joanne. You knew the difference, and you never seen the real one. She's bound to know the difference. She said she'd not been to any of his concerts on this particular tour, so she's in for a shock when she meets the fake. I'd love to see her reaction when she sets eyes on him. She might suspect something but say nothing. Not everyone's like you, Katie. She could just think he's changed. I don't want to sound bitchy, but she seems the sort of person who takes a superficial view of things. Yes, that's what I thought. She might be too preoccupied with herself to notice a change in Barry. It might be in the interests of our investigations to get to know Miss Macklin a little better. We can play things by ear. If it seems appropriate, we'll confide in her. But we must be careful. Right, said Joanne. She slapped her thighs. Come on, Bobby. The faithful dog bounded up to the girls. Joanne made a great fuss of him and fastened his lead to his collar. Time to go home. Who's a smashing fella? He looks a bit Maggie to me, observed Katie. He does not. He's beautiful. Take no notice of nasty Auntie Katie, Bobby. You're lovely. End of chapter 8.